Welcome to the Worldview Bulletin, where we explore faith, culture, and ideas through the lens of the Christian worldview. Today's video is an audio version of an article originally published at the Worldview Bulletin. In this article, we explore the fascinating story of the James Ossuary, an ancient Jewish burial box bearing the inscription, "James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus." If authentic, this discovery may be one of the earliest archaeological references to Jesus of Nazareth. This article is excerpted from Jeremiah J. Johnston's book, The Jesus Discoveries, 10 Historic Finds That Bring Us Face to Face with Jesus, published by Bethany House.
In first-century Jewish burial practice, death was not the final act, but the beginning of a sacred two-stage process. Initially, the body was laid to rest in a rock-hewn tomb, often within a family burial cave. After the flesh had decayed, a process that usually took about a year, the bones were reverently collected in a ritual known as ossulegium, or secondary burial, typically on or around the anniversary of death. These remains were then placed in limestone containers called ossuaries, or sometimes gathered into a communal niche or vault carved out for this purpose. The Jerusalem Talmud records this practice explicitly. At first, they would bury them in ditches, and when the flesh had decayed, they would gather the bones and bury them in ossuaries. And so there's a quiet dignity in these bone boxes of ancient Jerusalem. While this rite of bone gathering speaks volumes about Jewish reverence for the body even after death, questions remain. How early did this practice begin, and where did it originate? These remain key points of discussion in scholarly debates, especially when considering the archaeological wealth of ossuaries discovered around Jerusalem from the Herodian period, circa 35 BC to AD 70. Their inscriptions, design, and distribution provide compelling insight into Jewish beliefs about death, family, purity, and the afterlife during the time of Jesus. A simple box, a powerful inscription. But one particular ossuary, unearthed from the antiquities market in 2002, carries an inscription so provocative that it sparked a global controversy, years of legal battles, and renewed interest in the historical figure James, the brother of Jesus. The inscription, if authentic in its entirety, would constitute the first archaeological artifact bearing the name of Jesus of Nazareth, linked to both his familial and historical identity. The ossuary itself is modest, just over half a meter long, slightly asymmetrical in width and weathered by time. Like many from the first century, it once held the bones of an individual whose identity was lovingly etched in Aramaic into its side, Yaakov bar Yosef Akwi Yeshua, James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. 5 words, 50 characters, yet the implications are staggering. As Dr. Craig Evans has documented, the paleography of the inscription matches the script styles used in the decades just prior to Jerusalem's destruction in AD 70. André Lemaire, the epigrapher who first published the find in the Biblical Archaeology Review, concluded the inscription was authentic and likely referred to the James of early Christianity, Jesus' brother, the leader of the Jerusalem church, and one of the most significant but underappreciated figures in the New Testament, brother of Jesus. The first Christian skeptic, James appears at the margins of the Gospels, but emerges at the center of the apostolic witness after the resurrection. Mark records that Jesus was rejected in his hometown, and that the crowd was scandalized by his ordinary family background. Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? Mark 6:3. At this stage, James was not a follower of Jesus, but something changed after Easter. In 1 Corinthians 15:7, Paul tells us Jesus appeared to James. That appearance transformed a skeptical half-brother into a bold witness, ultimately known as James the Just. James soon became the leader of the Jerusalem church, convening the council in Acts 15 and serving as a spiritual authority, Acts 12:17, 15:13, 21:18. Paul refers to him as James the Lord's brother, Galatians 1:19, and alongside Peter and John as one of the pillars of the church, 2:9. From AD 33 to 62, James served as pastor of what was arguably the largest church in the world, with a conservative estimate of 10,000 to 20,000 believers worshiping under his leadership in Jerusalem. Acts records the explosive growth of this movement. About 3,000 converts at Pentecost, Acts 2. Another roughly 2,000 men soon afterward, likely adult males only, Acts 4:4. With believers being added continually, Acts 5:14. By the time of James's leadership in Acts 21, the apostles could speak of many tens of thousands of Jewish believers in Jerusalem, Acts 21:20, underscoring both the scale and public visibility of the earliest Christian movement, a martyr's death and a burial near the temple. James's devotion came at a cost. According to the first-century Jewish historian Josephus, James was executed in Jerusalem by stoning, an illegal and inflammatory act that cost the high priest Ananus his office. Josephus writes, Ananus brought before them James, the brother of Jesus, who was called the Christ, and certain others. He accused them of having transgressed the law and delivered them up to be stoned. This passage, authentic in virtually every scholarly assessment, represents one of the earliest extra-biblical references to Jesus and his followers. It places James's death in AD 62, during a temporary gap in Roman governance. As an aside, when I teach Luke/Acts, the martyrdom of James as recorded in Josephus, and not mentioned in Acts, is one of the strongest reasons I date the authorship of the book of Acts to pre-62 AD. Historian Eusebius, quoting earlier sources like Christian writer Hegesippus, adds vivid detail. James was pushed from the temple pinnacle, then beaten to death with a fuller's club and buried near the temple. He had become, as the ancients said, a living gate to Jesus. What does this mean for us today? It means we're not dealing with myth or legend. We're dealing with evidential and verifiable memory. A Roman-recognized Jewish historian documented the martyrdom of Jesus' brother. That's not the stuff of fables, it's the stuff of history. The Jesus discoveries then include not only the grand narratives of crucifixion and resurrection, but also these quieter affirmations in the margins of ancient texts. Here, in the midst of Josephus's recounting of priestly politics and judicial overreach, we catch a glimpse of the early Jesus movement, a movement too significant to ignore, too disruptive to suppress, and too rooted in real people, real events, and real sacrifice to be dismissed. James's martyrdom is a reminder those closest to Jesus did not merely remember him, they were willing to die for him. This is not just a bone box, it's potentially the earliest archaeological witness to Jesus of Nazareth and a tangible connection to his family.
You've been listening to the Worldview Bulletin. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. It helps us reach more people. If you'd like to read these articles, as well as listen to them, please visit worldviewbulletin.substack.com and sign up to receive our weekly emails. You can also use the link in the description.